Hello, it's a pleasure to be here with you in this international conference on climate change, environment, and development in China, in Brazil. My name is Aziz Saliba. I'm the Dean for International Affairs of UFMG, and I will serve as a co-host of this opening ceremony. I would like to welcome our President, Professor Sandra Almeida, Vice President of Renmin, Liu Yangchen, and the distinguished guests we have with us this morning, who will be participating during the ceremony. I will now hand the floor to Li Wei from Renmin.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Professor Saliba. It's my great honor to and my great pleasure to attend this important meeting. Today, we will discuss the important issue on the climate change and environmental cooperation and something like global governance. So, first of all, I would like to introduce two guests from our side, from Renmin University. The first maybe is a speaker. The two speakers from our side is our Vice President, Liu Yangchen. He is a famous economist, and also he's the Dean of our graduate school. And the second speaker from our side is Xu Guiling. He is the former Director General of State Forests and Posture Administration. Okay, let's go on our opening ceremony. It's your turn now. Yes.
Thank you very much.
You will introduce your president.
Thank you very much. So I would like to, before giving the floor to our President Sandra Regina Almeida, I would just like to welcome and acknowledge the presence of Senator Katia Abreu. So, Professor Sandra Almeida, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Professor Aziz Saliba, Professor Li Wei. It's a pleasure for me to be here today as President of the Federal University of Minas Gerais to welcome you all here in this event. I would like, which is co-hosted by UFMG and Renmin University of China. My thanks to Vice President Li Yangchen, hope I pronounced it correctly. Thank you very much for being here with us. I would like, it's a very important event for us, not only because of the cooperation with the University of Renmin in China, but also because of the topic of this conference, International Conference on Climate Change, Environment and Development in China and Brazil. I would like to thank all the speakers, the Japanese speakers and the Brazilian speakers as well. Thank you, Madam Senator Katia Abreu, for being with us today. It's very important that we have a spokesperson from the Senate in Brazil with us here today. Our cooperation with Renmin University it's a very fruitful cooperation that we've had along these years, which started with our joint participation in World University Network Association of universities all over the world, of which UFMG and Renmin are part. We also we have been talking about the possibility of this important agreement, an agreement that is going to sponsor the China-Brazil Joint Research Center, a very innovative initiative. But our cooperation already started, especially with Professor Liu Jinlong, with whom we have cooperated. We have cooperated with several other professors from Renmin University in the publication of a collection of global challenges in Asia, in South Asia, and also in other countries as well. So we had a very important cooperation, very important ties with Renmin University, which we hope the center, the research center that we are going to inaugurate today is going to support, and will also be able to give us means to develop further cooperation with the University of Renmin. So thank you very much, you all, for being here. Thank you, Vice President. Is a very important moment for all of us. And we do hope to be able to welcome you here in our university so that we can strengthen the ties between our university, which is going to be very important, not only for our university, but also for cooperation between Brazil and China. If we have learned something from this pandemic process, is that we need to work jointly. We need cooperation between institutions, we need cooperations between countries so that we can develop as countries and also as institutions. So thank you very much. I wish you all an excellent event, and thank you very much for the cooperation with our institution and for being here today. Thank you, Professor Aziz. You have the floor.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much, President Almeida. Thank you for your kind and warm remarks. Now let's welcome Vice President of Renmin University, Professor Liu Yuanchun, to deliver his welcome speech. Okay.
Thank you, Professor Li. Dear President Sandra Almeida, Senator Cassio Abreu, Secretary Qu Guilin, and all colleagues, good evening and good morning. Thank you for attending this webinar. UFMG and RUC have reached a consensus on establishing the Research Cooperation Center and signed the agreement through joint efforts. It's a milestone for the two universities in the history of their cooperation. On behalf of RUC, I send many thanks to all you for your hard work and hope that UFMG and RUC will work closely to implement the agreement and promote substantive cooperation. We expect to establish the center and make it a high-level platform for enhancing good partnership, deepening academic collaborations and exchanges, thus yielding quite a few joint research projects and academic efforts. As a member of the worldwide university network, RUC and UFMG will play a more vital role through joint work in WUM. China has formulated the blueprint for national modernization. Chinese President Xi Jinping has repeatedly stated that clear water and green mountains are as good as mountains of gold and silver. China has painted the picture of beautiful China, healthy China, in the construction of ecologic civilization. Environmental and development are still global trends and major challenges for developing countries. China and Brazil has been active in addressing climate change and made great achievements. However, there are big challenges for both countries, like COVID-19 pandemic, anti-globalization, and environmental problems, such as climate change and deforestation, as well as development problems such as widening income gap and the increase of low-income population. Faced with new situations, problems, and challenges, scholars in China and Brazil should enhance cooperation to promote green, innovative, inclusive, equitable economic development and the transformation of ecological civilization governance, and the building of open and shared social governance. We ought to make contributions to global poverty, elevation, and ecological civilization. The University of China is a comprehensive university focusing on humanities and social sciences. Its mission is to nurture exemplars of nation and pillars of society, with the most social sciences and liberal arts of high comprehensive level. IUC aims to foster excellent talents with high qualifications and build for the nation. IUC focuses on planning the vital role of social sciences in the world understanding, civilization inheritance, theoretical innovation, policy following, and social service. IUC explores major political, economic, cultural, and social issues with the help of its think tanks, offering powerful theoretically and intellectual support for the economic and social development. The University of China attaches great importance to international cooperation and exchange, since it's the fundamental way to solve problems. IUC has established rich and diverse partnerships such as student exchange, scientific research, and joint teaching with hundreds of universities in over 100 countries worldwide. We hope that the Research Cooperation Center will become a greater platform for international exchanges, and the IUC will provide all the support needed for the center. Thanks again for attending this webinar, and wish you all good health and prosperous development of UFMG. Thank you.
Thank you very much, President Liu Yanchen. It's a pleasure to have you here with us. Now, without further delay, I give the floor to Senator Cátia Abreu, who has joined us. Senadora Cátia Abreu, a senhora tem a palavra. Muito obrigado por participar do evento conosco.
Good morning to you all. Madam Senator Cátia Abreu will be delayed for a second. Could you please hold?
Sure.
If you like to move forward, Madam Senator could come back a little bit later on.
Okay. Shall we move on or wait a moment?
Let's move on. Perhaps now Jilin, the former State Forestry and Pasture Administration DG in China could speak, Professor Liu Wei.
Yes. The next speaker, let's welcome Mr. Qu Guiling, the former Director General of State Forest and Pasture Administration. Mr. Qu.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes. Please go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning or good evening, depending on your location. So my intervention maybe is about 7 minutes. So first, I'd like to congratulate the establishment of this center. This is very important. I really listened very carefully about previous speakers I fully endorse their points and contributing the topic of this meeting. So what we are talking today is a fairly big topic: climate change, environment, development. To be shortened, our topic is a green economic development. To be shortened again is development and protection that are facing all the developing countries. Go back to 70s in Stockholm, go back to 80s in Rio, Brazil, go back to 90s in Copenhagen. Head of state leaders discuss this. Certain progress has been made. This is a worldwide issue. This is a long issue, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, and so on. So nowadays, the green economic development, very important for all the countries, especially developing countries like China and Brazil. We are facing both opportunities and a challenge. So I take this opportunity to talk three things. First, we need a very strong green economic development mechanism, both in China and Brazil. To my knowledge, I know both countries already have this kind of mechanism. Second, I'd like to take this opportunity to share my personal views about how this center carry on its activities. And then I will say something about what we can do right now, okay? So I talk in the first point. So green economic development needs a challenge of transition of economic development and social development, transition of economic development and ecological development, transition of economic development of a whole lifestyle, habit of living, every one of us. So the government should have a strategy of this transition. So all the relevant enterprises, social societies will participate in this transition. Universities are important, a part of the social society. The place of the center established is also very important. So I think we can change ideas about economic transition, education, because education also very fundamental. So all people, especially knowledgeable students, they are the people of that others know importance of this transition. So they are also the people of participation of this transition. They are also the people who practice this transition in the future. So we should be very clear. That's the first point I'd like to make it. The second point, how to carry on our activities at the very beginning, because we should let relevant institutions of the countries know our center is established, existing now. It's very important, like relevant ministries, Ministry of Environment, Education, Finance, Foreign Affairs, so on, by doing transfer the information. And we also let the Chinese enterprises in Brazil and the Brazilian enterprises in China know our center by means of this kind of work. Because all these enterprises have the social responsibility in this transition. They have people to do this. They have money to do this. They also have the demand and the interest. They have activities they should be done at the very beginning after the center was established. So the third point, I'd like to say that how the center now, what things we can do right now. We should point out focal points of each side, that they will carefully think about activities, and we can do the information change of transition magazine between the two universities. You know, that's very easy, not cost too much. Then we can establish, like the people said, the students contact, online contacts first, or can visit each other in the right time. The teacher, the professors also can do this. So we can exchange the good practice of both countries in this transition task, because a lot of good practice. So by doing this, relevantly, we let the relevant institution know that we are existing, especially for organizations in China and in Brazil. So these organizations and institutions have their responsibilities, have the financial resources for which we can cover it later, step by step. So I firmly believe with our own efforts, two universities and centers and the relevant support organizations, our center will have a very, very good start A good start is half the battle. So, Chairman, that's my intervention. Thank you for your attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your kind words. So please allow me to say a few words on behalf of the Federal University of Minas Gerais. I'd like to thank Renmin's friends. It's a pleasure to receive you at UFMG, albeit virtually. UFMG has a special relation with China, first as a member of the Center for East Asian Studies, and later in my current capacity as Director of International Relations, as Dean of International Relations. I have had the privilege of witnessing much of this history that is being constructed before our eyes, and that for sure will be perpetuated. There won't be time to talk about everything that we have done so far with China and with Chinese partners. So let me highlight a few points. We maintain an active Confucius Institute, which, despite the difficulties of the pandemic, has over 500 students and has promoted the Mandarin and the ancient Chinese culture. In the current term, our president, Sandra Almeida's first international trip was to China. She's eager to return and visit our friends in Renmin as soon as the pandemic allows us to do so. In the early 2020, after the decree of the pandemic, we organized with our partners from Wuhan a productive meeting between scientists and health professionals from Huston University and UFMG. This information was important not only for our university, but also for the city of Belo Horizonte and for the state of Minas Gerais in confronting COVID-19. At a critical time when supplies were lacking, we received 5,000 masks from our Chinese partners, which were used in our hospitals. Today, with Renmin University, not only we jointly host this excellent event on the environment, climate change, and development with the participation of authorities and stellar academics like Madam Secretary and Professor Raoni Rajão, but we also celebrate the creation of a chair of a research center dedicated to the understanding of China by us, Brazilians, and of Brazil by our Chinese friends, which will allow for short-term professor mobility in different areas of knowledge. We believe it's a very important form of cooperation. It's a step we have only taken with a few very important partners, and Renmin is one of our most important partners in all the world. Despite everything, there is still much to be done. The long and endless path of cooperation has its ups and downs, obstacles and detours, but we believe that we are in the right path, and there are no difficulties that we cannot overcome together. I will end with a proverb. It is known here as a Chinese proverb, although sometimes many sayings are falsely attributed to China here. The saying is, tree planted with love, nobody cuts down. A real friendship too. Whoever sows trees creates roots. Who cultivates friendships too. So may we continue to plant trees, cultivate friendship, and cooperate. Cooperation is the path to development, peace, and overcoming humanity's most serious problems.
Professor Saliba, it's my pleasure to announce that Senator Abreu, she has just joined us this moment.
Excellent. So I now give the floor to Senator Kátia Abreu, and we are very pleased to have her with us. Senadora Kátia Abreu, prazer tê-la conosco. A senhora tem a palavra.
Deixa que eu siga. Olá, bom dia a todos. desculpe esses minutos de atraso, mas eu estava fazendo a abertura da Comissão de Relações Exteriores. Nós vamos sabatinar hoje 11 diplomatas, em especial no período da manhã, 5 mulheres, porque é uma meta nossa alcançar o percentual de mulheres embaixadoras em 30%. O Brasil só tem apenas 15%. E hoje é o primeiro dia de 5 mulheres já sendo encaminhadas para postos importantes por todo o mundo. Então, é só para registrar a importância que nós damos às mulheres do Brasil, o Senado Federal. Cumprimento a excelentíssima reitora da Universidade Federal de Minas Gerais, professora Sandra Almeida, que preside essa sessão virtual, o excelentíssimo professor Liu Jinlong, diretor do Centro de Estudo de Políticas Florestais, Ambientais e de Recursos da Universidade Renmin da China, o nosso doutor Raoni Rajão, um querido amigo, um especialista da maior qualidade da Universidade Federal de Minas Gerais, coordenador do Laboratório de Estudos em Gestão de Serviços Ambientais da Universidade Federal de Minas Gerais, e a todos que nos assistem hoje. Professor Rajão ainda é o meu professor, meu personal em questões ambientais e tem me ajudado demais no entendimento dessas questões, eu gostaria aqui de registrar. Nem sempre tenho sido uma boa aluna, mas ele, um excepcional professor. Sinto-me honrada e feliz pelo convite para participar dessa Conferência Internacional sobre Mudança Climática, Meio Ambiente e Desenvolvimento na China e no Brasil, que acontece por ocasião da assinatura do termo de colaboração entre a Universidade Renmin da China e a Universidade Federal de Minas Gerais, que é uma das universidades mais respeitadas do Brasil, e do estabelecimento do Centro de Pesquisa RUC, China, Brasil e UFMG. É um momento, nos últimos 50 anos, os setores agrícolas e alimentícios do Brasil e da China passaram por profundas reformas e transformações, como 2 dos 4 maiores produtores globais e exportadores, China e Brasil. São atores importantes na futura paisagem da agricultura global. Portanto, esses momentos de troca de experiências e avaliação de casos concretos podem contribuir para o desenvolvimento sustentável nos nossos países e no mundo. Principalmente agora, quando 191 países acabam de firmar na COP26 compromissos em prol das condições climáticas que garantirão a vida e a segurança alimentar no mundo. O Acordo de Colaboração entre a UFMG e a RUC inscreve-se entre as salutares iniciativas que têm sido gradativamente implementadas em nosso país. A Universidade Federal de Minas Gerais, por meio, sobretudo, de sua Diretoria de Relações Internacionais, foi pioneira ao promover eventos cujos temas enfeixam a cooperação Brasil-China, desafios e oportunidades, pesquisa, contexto e desenvolvimento. É um momento estratégico na relação cultural, científica e acadêmica entre os países, que aprofundam os já fortes laços que os unem, como a Câmara Chinesa de Comércio do Brasil, o Conselho Empresarial Brasil-China, o Grupo Parlamentar Brasil-China no Senado e a Frente Parlamentar Brasil-China do Congresso Nacional, que é uma comissão mista, deputados e senadores. O mundo inteiro testemunhou as enormes conquistas do agronegócio nos últimos 40 anos, principalmente no que diz respeito ao aumento de produtividade. Durante todos esses últimos anos, nós fizemos uma economia ambiental extraordinária, uma poupança extraordinária pelo aumento da produtividade. Nós tivemos um grande desmatamento evitado. Se nós não tivéssemos progredido na tecnologia, nós necessitaríamos de mais terras no passado para chegar onde estamos hoje. Então, graças à Embrapa e várias universidades federais e estaduais do Brasil, nós alcançamos exportações globais que multiplicaram nos últimos 20 anos, saindo de 20 bilhões de dólares no ano 2000 para 110 bilhões de dólares projetados para esse ano, graças à tecnologia. Surpreendentemente, os anos de 2020 e 2021, que foram marcados pela pandemia da Covid-19, nós registramos recordes de comércio exterior na área do agro. possibilitando ao Brasil a consolidar as posições de detentora do maior superávit comercial agrícola do planeta, exatamente nos anos da pandemia. E o terceiro maior exportador do agronegócio mundial, apenas nesses 2 anos. A China é atualmente nosso maior parceiro comercial, sendo o destino de 32% das exportações brasileiras e origem de 21,4% das nossas compras internacionais. As relações Brasil-China foram estabelecidas em 1974 e no ano de 2001, marcada pela entrada da China na Organização Mundial do Comércio, OMC. O fluxo comercial entre os países foi de 3,2 bilhões de dólares. Nas últimas 2 décadas, nossas exportações para a China, que cresceram mais de 20% ao ano, passaram de 1 bilhão em 2000 para 36 bilhões em 2020. A evolução da parceria entre China e o Brasil é impressionante. O brasileiro Marcos Troirro, que hoje preside o NDB, que é o Banco Brasileiro de Desenvolvimento dos BRICS, a sigla em inglês NDB, informa que o comércio Brasil-China era de 1 bilhão no início dos anos 2000, 1 bilhão ano, e agora movimenta esse valor de 1 bilhão de dólares a cada 60 horas. É fantástico e extraordinário esse crescimento dessa cooperação. Temos atendido com eficiência e qualidade os volumes e produtos demandados pela China, com destaque para o complexo alimentar soja, milho, carnes, celulose, açúcar, café e algodão. E outros 2 produtos primários, o minério de ferro e o petróleo bruto. O aumento populacional, crescimento econômico e os processos de urbanização acelerada e mudança nos hábitos alimentares da nova classe média que se consolidou naquela região tem sido a locomotiva desta demanda. No programa decenal da China, foi estabelecido um acesso muito elevado de chineses à classe média, e isso se cumpriu tranquilamente. Senhoras e senhores, ao entrar definitivamente no tema a mim destinado, cumpre dizer que são inúmeros os desafios que advêm da necessidade premente de combater as causas e os efeitos das mudanças climáticas. Apesar de contribuir de forma significativa para as emissões de dióxido de carbono e de gases de efeito estufa no mundo, devemos conhecer o sucesso das iniciativas chinesas em reduzir esses poluentes, o que influencia diretamente as perspectivas para conter o aquecimento global e as mudanças climáticas. Sabemos que o governo chinês empreende um colossal programa de reflorestamento, que inclui o plantio de 36 mil quilômetros quadrados de árvores por ano até 2005. Se num passado recente a China tinha apenas 16% de área plantada, hoje já alcança 26% do seu território, cumprindo essa missão estabelecida pelo governo. O país vem trabalhando também em projetos de despoluição das cidades e dos rios e caminha para liderar o processo de transição energética nas próximas décadas, valendo-se da energia eólica, fotovoltaica e nuclear. De acordo com pesquisadores da Universidade de Tsinghua, 90% da energia deve provir de fontes nucleares e renováveis até 2050. Já o governo brasileiro apresentou na COP26 uma nova meta de redução de 50% das emissões de gases causadores do efeito estufa até 2030 e a neutralidade das emissões até 2050. Os números são ambiciosos e surpreenderam parte da comunidade internacional. Acredito com convicção que podemos atingir essa meta e melhorar a nossa imagem. Registro que nós tivemos um anúncio que nos entristeceu bastante, que foi, mais uma vez, um recorde de desmatamento na Amazônia. Eu quero crer, com toda franqueza, Não sou uma ferrenha defensora do governo, não sou da base pessoalmente do governo, mas devo reconhecer que o novo ministro está num esforço concentrado para reduzir esse desmatamento. Eu sempre faço uma analogia, que cair num abismo, a gente precisa de 10 minutos, mas para subir a encosta do abismo, nós, infelizmente, levamos muito mais tempo. Então, eu acredito que, ao permitir o aumento do desmatamento, o Brasil, como se tivesse dado um pulo para o abismo. E agora, o retorno para a plataforma, para a planície, é um retorno mais demorado. E outras ações mais fortes deverão ser implementadas para evitar comando e controle. O Brasil tem uma legislação rigorosa, muito forte com relação a crimes ambientais. E o que nós estamos defendendo no Congresso Nacional é que basta de multas, basta de embargos. Nós queremos a prisão daqueles que cometeram o crime ambiental, que, aliás, é um crime inafiançável no Brasil. Não dá mais para ter paciência. Nós não estamos mais na fase educativa, nós não estamos mais na fase pedagógica. Nós temos que mostrar para o Brasil, para os brasileiros e para o mundo, que o Brasil cumpre a lei, inclusive na punição, que é o exemplo que nós queremos dar para esses poucos criminosos que insistem em desmatar. Alguns são produtores rurais, mas uma grande maioria ladrões de madeira, ladrões da floresta, traficantes de madeira para o mundo, e também alguns outros criminosos atrás de minério ilegal. A Amazônia inteira é do tamanho exatamente de uma Europa ampliada, com mais de 45 países. Do ponto de vista territorial, a Amazônia tem o mesmo espaço territorial do que 45 países de toda a Europa e alguns países vizinhos. Os nossos recursos são poucos, os nossos recursos que tínhamos foram embargados no fundo da Amazônia, recursos da Noruega e da Alemanha, Dinamarca, Noruega e Alemanha, desculpe, e com o aumento do desmatamento, esses recursos foram suspensos, e isso atrapalhou muito a nossa condição de combate a esse desmatamento. Mas vamos continuar persistindo no combate ilegal ao desmatamento brasileiro. Não é apenas por conta de uma questão de imagem, não é apenas para mostrar ao mundo que nós somos responsáveis e legalistas, mas porque sem a Amazônia não há chuva no Brasil, não há chuva para a agricultura brasileira, para a agricultura do Uruguai, da Argentina, do Paraguai, do centro-sul do Brasil. A Amazônia garante essa chuva. Então, desmatar a Amazônia é o mesmo que acabar com a agricultura do Brasil ou simplesmente reduzir enormemente a sua produtividade. E nós levamos 50 anos para chegar até aqui. E não serão meia dúzia de irresponsáveis, ilegais, criminosos que irão desmanchar tudo o que foi construído à custa de muito esforço, muito suor de todo o povo brasileiro. Temos uma das matrizes elétricas mais limpas do mundo, 83%, e perseveramos 66% da nossa cobertura vegetal, o que demonstra como a nossa agricultura é sustentável. Nossos números são incontestáveis. Apenas na matriz elétrica, nós temos mais de 80% da energia limpa. Quando consideramos a matriz energética total, chega a 46%, mas em franco crescimento, a matriz eólica, a energia eólica, a energia fotovoltaica, a energia hídrica. Agora, em pequenos pontos que nós temos espalhados por todo o país, de pequenas usinas hidrelétricas, PCHs ou CGHs, que trazem um impacto muito menor, mas que têm uma efetividade muito maior. Um impacto menor do ponto de vista ambiental e menor do ponto de vista social. Senhoras e senhores, China e Brasil devem caminhar juntos na direção correta, a descarbonização de suas economias em prazo relativamente curto. O desenvolvimento em bases sustentáveis não é apenas desejável, ele tornou-se necessário, obrigatório, para que a vida no planeta Terra subsista ao longo do tempo. Há potencial para ampliar a nossa cooperação China-Brasil, principalmente na área ambiental. As práticas sustentáveis empregadas pelo Brasil em seus setores agrícolas e florestal podem gerar créditos de carbono a serem adquiridos pela China para cumprir sua meta de neutralidade de carbono em 2060. O Brasil, por sua vez, tem uma sólida tradição no uso de biocombustíveis renováveis, como o etanol e o biodiesel, e avança no desenvolvimento e produção de bioóleo a partir de florestas plantadas, além do importante plano de agricultura de baixo carbono, ABC, que avança para a sua segunda edição. Esse plano iniciou ainda na COP em Copenhague, na Dinamarca, onde nós assumimos compromissos muito fortes de recomposição de áreas degradadas e plantio de florestas, e o governo brasileiro disponibilizou recursos com juros bem compatíveis com a realidade dos produtores rurais, para que nós pudéssemos melhorar a degradação de nossas terras e também plantio de florestas. Na primeira edição, nós chegamos a 70 milhões de hectares, e agora, nessa segunda edição, nós deveremos chegar a 52 milhões de hectares na próxima década. Penso que eventos como esse, de que ora participamos, podem estimular o intercâmbio entre centros geradores de conhecimento, os chamados think tanks, e aprofundar a cooperação bilateral em ciência, tecnologia e inovação. De minha parte, como membro do Grupo Parlamentar Brasil-China, presidente da Comissão de Relações Exteriores, ex-ministra da Agricultura do Brasil, e entusiasta de nossas relações bilaterais, assumo o compromisso de, como senadora da República, me dedicar às causas que fortaleçam essa união. Já tive a minha presença física 10 de vezes à China, 10 vezes, e confesso que, após a pandemia, estou com muita vontade e saudosa das relações e do contato com o povo chinês. Quero ainda registrar a todos que nós temos uma obrigação muito forte em 2050. A FAO, ela estabelece ao Brasil uma responsabilidade ímpar, uma responsabilidade importante, que é aumentar a sua produção de alimentos até 2050 em 40%. O segundo colocado em expectativa de aumento de produção ficou a China, com 15%, a Europa, com 12%, os Estados Unidos, com 13%. Então, nós sabemos que o Brasil tem condições de aumentar a sua produção através da produtividade, da busca de terras degradadas e recompormos essa área, sem desmatar nem uma árvore sequer. Nós conseguiremos aumentar essa produção. A ilegalidade, o desmatamento ilegal, é nocivo aos brasileiros em primeiro lugar. E com essa tarefa que a FAO nos impõe, que estabelece que nós deveremos aumentar em 500 bilhões de toneladas de grãos até 2050, 200 bilhões de toneladas de carnes até 2050, necessitaremos de 500 milhões de hectares de produção para se fosse um aumento puro em área. Mas nós estamos crendo que muitas dessas áreas já estão abertas e que, com a tecnologia, elas possam alcançar esses patamares. 30% da área apropriada para a agricultura no mundo está na América Latina. Então, a nossa responsabilidade se amplia e nós precisamos fazer isso de forma ordenada. Propus à FAO, ao NDB, ao CAF, que é um banco também da América Latina, a Embrapa, para que nós possamos fazer um mapa mundial da alimentação para 2050. Aonde estão essas áreas que a FAO faz essa previsão? A localização dessas áreas. Estabelecer a infraestrutura necessária para essas áreas. Não existe agricultura sem infraestrutura. Não existe agricultura sem insumos, sem fertilizantes, enfim, sementes. Então, nós precisamos, e sem tecnologia, nós precisamos aumentar essa produção de forma sustentável, principalmente com a Embrapa, que tem uma especialidade grande nos trópicos. E a África subsaariana coincide muito com as nossas características. Então, a FAO ficou na coordenação, o economista-chefe, senhor Máximo, ficou estabelecido que ele fará o checklist fará o termo de acordo para que nós possamos, os parceiros, cumprir com essa meta de localização dessas áreas que deverão ser implementadas até 2050 e os desafios que deveremos empreender para essas áreas. O NDB, o Banco dos BRICS e a CAF irão financiar esse estudo, porque, claro, tem uma perspectiva também no futuro, como bancos, de financiar essas infraestruturas ou de forma privada ou para os países ou províncias. Então, eu gostaria de convidar a Universidade Chinesa, a Universidade de Minas Gerais, para fazer parte conosco desta busca de conhecimento, de identificação dessas áreas, para que nós possamos não permitir que falte alimentos, mas que isso possa vir de forma sustentável, com menos carbono possível que nós pudermos implementar. Mais uma vez, agradeço a todos pelo convite, honroso em participar, parabenizo mais uma vez essa aliança e estarei sempre à disposição para o debate dos senhores. Muitíssimo obrigado e eu peço perdão, desculpas por ter que me retirar para retornar às sabatinas da CRE. Muito obrigada.
Muito obrigada, senhora senadora, pela excelente palestra. Para nós da UFMG é muito importante tê-la conosco, e eu agradeço também o apoio às atividades dessa cooperação, que nós esperamos, como a senhora disse, seja bastante frutífera e que possa ajudar também o nosso país nas decisões a serem tomadas. Muito obrigada. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Muito obrigada, professora Sandra. Nice to meet you.
Obrigado, senadora. Prazer tê-la conosco.
Obrigada, professor.
Okay. Thanks very much, Senator. Professor Liu has told me that he will ask for your speech notes, your English speech notes. I look forward to read it. Thank you very much. Very nice remarks. Okay. I forgot to introduce myself. I am the Vice Director of the Research Office and the International Office. So I am now in charge of the international cooperation of our university. So because of the pandemic, we cannot meet each other face to face. I look forward to see you face to face in the near future. Okay. I have finished my task. I will move the floor to the Professor Liu Jinlong. Okay, it's your time.
Okay, Saliba, we should call the chair for the next section. Am I right? Yeah. Would you mind to introduce the participants for I think it's our secretary.
Yes. Before that, Jinlong, before moving to the second part of the event, with your permission.
Yes.
We are all anxious to hear our dear Secretary Marília Melo and Professor Raoni Rajão. I would like to note my gratitude to the officials of both universities who have led and supported this cooperation.
Sure.
Professor Sandra Almeida has made this cooperation one of her priorities, and Professor Liu Yunchan. For him, I would like to convey my apologies for the mispronunciation, for my difficulties with the pronunciation of his name, and my gratitude for taking part in the collection we have about global challenges. He co-edited the book, a book with Dawisson and myself, in which also several professors from Renmin participated. I also want to thank you personally, Jinlong. Not only you have been a very good friend, but also an enthusiast of the cooperation between Renmin and UFMG. You have been here as a speaker, and we look forward to having you again. And finally, I would like to thank the Professor Dawisson Lopes and the staff in our international office who have worked for this event. Now, with your permission, I introduce the speakers. Perhaps I will begin with Secretary Marília Mello, who will be the first speaker.
Sure.
Secretary, yes. Just 1 second. Secretary Marília Mello is also a good friend. And it's a pleasure to have you here with us this morning, Secretary Marília Mello. She is one of the most promising, leaders, female leaders of her generation. She is the State Secretary of Minas Gerais for the Environment. She's a civil engineer with emphasis on water resources and sanitation at the University the University Federal of Rio de Janeiro. She is a professor and also the coordinator of the master's program on sustainability and water resources at the University Vale do Rio Verde. She was the president and director of the Environmental Monitoring and Inspection of Water Management Institute of Minas Gerais, IGAM, and she's a deputy secretary of state for environment and sustainable. She has been, deputy secretary of state for environment and sustainable development. Now, without further ado, Secretary Marília Mello, you have the floor, and allow me, please, to say that it's a great honor to have you here with us this morning, or this afternoon for you, that as you are in Spain, and this evening for our Chinese friends.
Thank you very much, Professor Aziz, for your kindness presentation of me. I'm very happy to be here with you. It's an honor for me to be in this conference in the Federal University of Minas Gerais, the university that graduates me in civil engineer and where I did my master course as well. It's a pleasure for me to be here. I will share a small presentation to let me just know if it's okay for everyone. I think that's okay. Yes. Just a moment. Just a moment. Okay. So thank you for the honor invitation to be here today. I don't know what's happening. Are you seeing some risks in the presentation?
Yes, but if it's not a problem for you, you may go ahead.
Okay. I will. Let's go ahead. So again, thank you very much for the invitation. It's an honor for me to be here with you in this conference of an important subject for us in Minas Gerais state, as is for us in all the country. The climate change is a strategic issue for us as public policers in our state, and is assumed for our governor as a priority subject for Minas Gerais. So I will do my speech about Brazilian challenge for the decarbonization of economy in 2015. It was a commitment, a recent commitment doing by our country to achieve the neutralization until 2050. So I start here with an important subject, that's our diversity in Brazil. It's very important to understand the diversity of environmental aspects, about water availability, and as well as social conditions in our country. As we are a very diverse country, we have to have a diverse climate agenda to address the challenge of each region of our country. This is an important point because as we talk about the climate change policy, we are talking not just about the decrease of emissions, but we are talking too about the evaluation of the impact that we already have with the climate change in Brazil and in all world, and how we will address the mitigation and adaptation actions to minimize the losses, environmental losses, economic losses, and social losses as well. So this vulnerability index shows that Brazil is country that in some regions we have more vulnerability than others. As I told before, it's important to understand the public policies that we have to define in each region. So this study did evaluation of our public policy in terms of climate change in Brazil. So this comparison is very important to help us as a country and Minas Gerais state as well to improve our public policies about climate change. It's really very important to understand first the prioritization of actions, of policies, and to cooperate with international experience and to support with budget this action in all our country and Minas Gerais states. Thus, it's urgent to define pragmatic and focused action plan for the climate agenda and its cooperation that will be established here with confidence can support much on technical and scientific basis, setting these priorities and action. The main discussion in COP26 were established in addition to the regulation of the carbon market and investments in countries such as Brazil that contribute to environmental preservation. We need to think about what is the economic value of the forest, and how this value represent in provision of environmental service for all the world. So the agenda of finance and the agenda of prioritization budgets of public policy, it's too important to support the policy and the action, of course, based on scientific and technical issues. Here it's the inventory of Brazilian greenhouse gas emissions, show us that we have three sectors priorities for us. The first one is farming. The second one is energy. And the third one is land use. So if we focus our efforts in these three sectors, we will have very important results in terms of climate change public policies in our country. Here, we can see the evaluation along the period since 1990 to 2016 of the emissions and remotions of greenhouse gases in Brazil. But this allows us to observe the increasing contribution in agriculture and energy sector, but also allow us to see that three priority sectors are the same over the time. This slide, I try to show a little bit this diversity that we have in our country. And it's a diversity in the climate agenda as well. Assessing regional data, the North region demonstrates that the relevance of the land use and agriculture is its priority. In the Northeast and the Southeast, the energy sector stands out, especially in the Southeast, the region where we are. In the South and the Midwest, the most relevant sector is agriculture. This reality reflects the economic as well the social model of each region of our country. Finally, in the understanding of Brazilian scenario, this image presents the detail of emissions versus removals, demonstrating the importance of Brazilian forests, fighting the deforestation and an effective forest restoration policy for our country. In the sequence, I will present some details and projections of these sectors so that we can discuss the path to climate agenda priorities. In the sector energy, transport, as we can see, is the largest responsible for emission in our country, followed by the industrial sector. These projections carried out by the energy planning company demonstrate a trend of increase in energy demand by 2050. Again, with transport and industry as a large claimants of energy. Here shows an assessment by the power source, oil and derivatives, have a relevant representation which relates to transport sector. So it's very important to develop alternatives of use of fossil fuels that are the priority demand for transport in our country. In this slide, we can see the balance between the transport of cargo and passengers in participation by type of transport. In the largest Brazilian cities, public transport, and especially the adoption of models like subway system, is still a challenge that needs to be assumed by the governments, especially by municipalities. One point of attention in the trend in Latin America to increase individual transports along the time. So it's a trend that must be analyzed to try to address different public policies to improve the public transportation in our country. This slide shows us the second focus sector, farming. In agriculture, enteric fermentation is pointed out as the main emitter in our country, followed by soil use with the increase of nitrogen, the use of nitrogen for fertilization. This data from a study from UFMG, addressed by UFMG, there is a trend of increase the cattle in Brazil. But here are 2 points that relate to climate agenda. The first point refers from the livestock, whatever extensive or intensive one. Senator Cátia Abreu said about this. We already have a lot of areas in our country. We don't need to deforestate to improve or to increase our cattle. We can use these areas and we can use technologies as the integration of forest and cattle with a lot of research being doing here. And of course, I know that this comparison will improve the knowledge about this issue. This is data from the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock that validate the data of the last slide, showing the tendency of increase of the cattle in our country. Finally, the land use change. This is a big issue for us, as pointed to by the Senator Cátia Abreu. The data and monitoring carried out shows us that the change of the land use and deforestation is directly related to agriculture sector. But as she told, we know that it's not the most behavior of the sector. It's a behavior of some that don't want to be legal. Thus, urgent strategies to combat irregular deforestation need to be defined. Increased productive for agriculture without the need for expansion of new areas in our country and state. And returning to the livestock sector, encourage intensive livestock in our country. Here, I present the projection of the production of some agricultural products in our country. It's important to see these numbers, as Cátia Abreu mentioned, because Brazil is increasing too much in agriculture, and agriculture is becoming an important economic value for our country. So this cooperation will turn possible for us with some research that we already have been development in Brazil with Embrapa and other in UFMG to increase the productive, but respecting environmental laws. That's so important for us. So this is the projection of production of some agricultural products in Brazil. Brazil is a very strategic in global food demand, as I just told, and they represent that, and the representation of the sector in national GDP has grown. Therefore, we need to redefine the basis of Brazilian agricultural production, which must be aligned with environmental preservation. This is an important point to be addressed here in this conference. This scientific paper made a projection of deforestation trend in Amazon region, and so it shows that pasture is a biggest problem in this region. But it's important to say that, of course, Amazon is an important area and biome from our country, but we have other biomes important as well. Minas Gerais, for example, we have Mata Atlântica, rainforest. That's an important biome. And here in Minas Gerais, we have the biggest remaining area of Mata Atlântica in Brazil. So it's very important. As Cerrado, for example, another important biome for our country, where the main sources of river in our country borns. So we have to look to Amazonia, but we have to look to the other biomes of our country as well. Finally, I bring a brief scenario of our state, Minas Gerais. Our last inventory of greenhouse emissions from 2014, and it's now being updated, but it shows for us that the three sectors that I relate that are Brazilian, that must be the Brazilian priority is the same for us here in Minas Gerais: agriculture, energy, and land use. In 2014, we also drew up our first climate change plan in partnership with French government, but the plan did not go into the detail of actions, and so we are now improving this plan to be more pragmatic with actions for address the climate change agenda in our state. But it's important to show this image because in this plan of 2014, we did an important evaluation of vulnerability of our 853 municipalities that we have in our state. So it's very important to understand this vulnerability of our municipalities, our cities, and the state as a basis for our agenda of adaptation and impact mitigation. In this year in Minas Gerais, we have a very big forest that impact the agriculture in our state. So the climate events, the extreme events is a challenge for us here in Brazil. Even drought, forests, and floods as well. Today, we have a commitment from our governor, Romeu Zema, to priority of the climate agenda in Minas Gerais. We were the first state in Latin America and Caribbean to enter to Race to Zero campaign and commit to neutralization since 2015. We are the first state in Latin America and Caribbean. We signed the commitment in June of this year, and after us, 9 other states in Brazil signed the campaign Race to Zero as well. So we have a big movement, a big commitment of subnational states here in Brazil with this environment and climate agenda. So finishing my presentation, I would like to point some challenges and opportunities that we have here in Brazil and in Minas Gerais that I believe that this cooperation that now is established with UFMG and the university in China could bring us important results to support or to define the priorities and the actions for our public policies. The first one is enhance basic data to support the definition of priority for sector actions in climate agenda. The second one is to development the techniques and technology suited to the Brazilian reality. We need to remember that we have a social issues that has to be addressed as well as environment and economy issues. And incorporate the adaptation and mitigation agenda to decrease the impact that we already have in social and economic terms by the climate change impacts that we have in Brazil. Understanding this scenario is an important basis for defining strategies for an economy, green, and socially inclusive transition. The path of neutralization by 2050 must rely on effective regulation and public policies in states and municipalities, considering the federative organization of Brazil and the relevance of subnational and local territories in our country as well. Additionally, the technical and scientific basis in the proposal of modeling the sectors for the decarbonization agenda of the economy is essential. Innovation and technology development that are coherent and accessible to Brazil's economic and social reality is also a key factor in structure and implementing an effective climate change agenda in our country. Therefore, the collaboration between institutional and political agenda with the academia is so strategic as we are doing here today for define our priorities to monitor the results of the public policies. So I would like to thank the opportunity to be here with you and put Minas Gerais state available for cooperation with this important two university. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Secretary Maria Amélia, for your excellent presentation and also for the outstanding job you have been doing at the Secretary of the Environment of Minas Gerais. It's a pleasure to have you here with us. And I hope we continue to improve the relationship between UFMG and the state of Minas Gerais. They have been excellent partners over the years, and especially in the past few years. I now would like to move to the next speaker, our dear friend, Professor Liu Jinlong. I would like to take this opportunity to present him formally. The first thing I would like to say that he's a good old friend of mine. We have been colleagues at the board of the Worldwide Universities Network. He's the director of the Center of Forestry, Environment, and Resources Policy Study at Renmin University. He received his PhD in Rural Development Sociology from Wageningen University. He's an honorary professor in Hong Kong at Hong Kong University. He also serves as a professor at Wageningen University and also at Seoul National University. His main areas of interest include rural development, forest governance and policy, nature resource management, and environmental governance. He is the deputy coordinator of UFRU, Forestry Policy and Economic Division, Division 9, and member of the Task Force of Indigenous and Local Knowledge of the International Science Policy Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services. Professor Jinlong has published over 100 journal articles and 4 academic books from 2010 to 2020. Professor Jinlong, you have the floor.
Thank you, Aziz, my old friend. I really want to save some time because we are a little bit behind our schedules. The topic is very, very huge. Actually, actually we are looking for the cooperation between China and Brazil in terms of area, topic, what sort of activity in the future we can do together. Actually, we have some question for our secretary, but maybe in the future we can discuss further. So my topic is a little bit, something like I think it's relevant to the topic our secretary. That secretary talk, okay, what's the challenge we have? But now, we have a similar problem, similar challenge as I think China have with, relative to the Brazil. But what I'm talking now, how we China face out, how we China go ahead, for transform the ecological civilization in China. Since we wait to, for climate change or the biodiversity conservation or ecological, rehabilitation. That's, that's a little bit comprehensive, to put together, we call it ecological civilization. But maybe it's difficult for our international, participants understand that, but we are not open up. That is, okay, just green economy, whatever you can say, that is, included in the terminology of the ecological civilization. What I'm talking today is, China trajectory of sustainable development, ecological civilization, building and green, action or future challenge or international institutional arrangement, priority and roadmap ecological civilizations. If you look at the human index, human development index, China, I think China, Brazil, in the same level. China grew up very quickly, and we catch up with Brazil, very recently. Actually, I think very recently China is a little bit above the Brazil levels. And if you look at the ecological footprint, and China is still behind the Brazil in a few years ago, but now I think in the same level. But we all above our capacity, the area, territory, ecological capacity. We call it world biocapacities. We already surpassed. So that means our land is not able to support the people's life in the populations, the livelihood. So we are looking for, the way for sustainable development, sustainability. That's a major challenge. But if you look at that, the features, you see the developed country like USA or European Union, I think if you look at that data, they may have more challenges. Okay. If you look at some data, China, we have some resource, deficits, like if we against the population, GDP, something like 50%, and but in 1960s, but energy we consume 20%, and steel 44%, and chemical fertilizer we use 33%. But if you look at salmon, China, consume 3/4 of the total output of major producing country in the world. You see, and China, so that's why it's because China we don't have resources, sufficient resources, so we need to import. If you look at that data, we 8% oil we import, and 55 timber, and we import 55% of timber and the domestic consumer, 80% iron ore. And around 100 million tons of soybean. You see, these are the products like timber, oil, and iron core, or the soybean. Many of them, large percentage of these products we import from Brazil. But one issue is we said here, the grain products we import less than 5%. If you look at the carbon emission, China really grows very fast. You see, and we have problem for the fogs. You see, if you look at that map, in the past 30 years, dust, air dust, it's become serious and serious. Like this one is serious day in 2016. About half country was covered by dust, the serious dust. And it creates a lot of problem, international pressures. But maybe in recent 5 years, China make great progress on the test, the air, smoke control. Particularly in Beijing, we have more clear days, not polluted days. And the lake, the pollution also lake is, kind of bacterial outbreak in the Taihu Lake. That Taihu is located in a very rich area in China. So that's it's real problem. And if you look at the dry land, it's similar. Maybe you have a lot of dry land in Brazil. Desertification and the pasture degradation of pastures is quite serious. And it's sandstorm. It's really issue. and then the protection of the grassland is declined seriously. And so what's the issue? The issue is that, okay, we are in an economic agriculture era or industrial era or information era. Okay, now information era, but we may go to maybe the two options. One is sustainability era, maybe the crops. So we're worried about the crops. So that's the issue. So China, okay, that. But if you look at the development, we call development ideologies, that if we learn lessons from the previous 30 years or 40 years, okay, in the past 40 years, our ideology or development ideology, okay, focus in the GDP oriented. Okay, GDP oriented. So if we have more GDP, you make good economic progress, as a conflict of developing environment, too fast growth of economic growth, but not very much care for the environment. So that's, if you look at the major root cause, okay, it's development patterns in industrial structures. So if you look at in the past 30 years, actually China it's really try to keen the environment protection. Like if you look at the program we studied or the laws we studied, more strict for environment protection, more strict for natural resource use. But still, we have a lot of problem. So that's why you have more data like in the last 30 years, sustainable development. We create many terminology like new industry pairs or scientific development concept or resource efficiency, environment-friendly society, circular economy in 2004 and in 2006 we proposed energy efficiency or prudent reduction approach, and 2009 we proposed a national development idea, the low carbon development. Only actually the 2012 is a turning point. We start ecological terminology. So new governance philosophies. So to start from that, okay, there we revise our legal framework, plan framework, or action plan, or review the previous policy, how we can do further, or some pilot project, but it's a law, it's a law change, revise. Recent few years, we can frequently, amend our laws to meet that requirement. So we integrate in the 5 years planning or the long-term planning. So maybe you may understand that China is it's a ideology-driven development. Okay, if we start out, if we call it ecological social civilization, then that it's ideology. But now, how to interpret into the action? Okay, through the 5-year planning, long-term planning, or the institutional or the law firm. That's that. As already mentioned about our president, we said green is good. Green is good. It's strategy. It's kind of strategy for China. So and in 2012, okay, that's that kind of the ideology become the Party Congress report. Maybe understand the China Communist Party Congress is kind of the policy strategy, orientation of policies. So then they set up the like a principle or main task. That's a macro, very macro level planning. Then goes to like as I already mentioned, goes to the okay. That's another, very important report. It's called Integrated Reform Plan for Promote Ecological Civilization. And that is issued in 2015. Then in that report, okay, they some more details, like 1+6 or 1.8 models or one overall comprehensive document, policy document. Then +6, very important document. That's like Lewis regulation or the reform document, like you mentioned already. We are in the last, the sentence you said, after 2015 September, in that period, 2013, 2017, we issued, they issued like a 40 key national policy document, reform policy reform document. And if you look at the China, ecological civilization, we can highlight, some key issues like, philosophies, 5-in-1. Maybe you may not understand. Economy, policy, economy, social development, economic development, social development, political development, and the cultural development. We have to put this, the civilized, ecological civilization as put, in all, how I say, that's input, that integrate to the economic development, social development, cultural development, political development, and like process, political process. That is 5-in-1. And that mentioned the protection first, a green transition development, like the focus on the circular economy, lower carbon development. That's prioritize compulsory or mandatory the target. That environment issue, the target for environment protection is compulsory. It's mandatory. You have to meet that goals. Maybe you understand a few months ago, the China we cut down the tree ecological electricity supply to industries because the local government calculate, okay, we may not meet the environment goals, environment target. So that's why it's not because China don't have electricity supply. It's because industries move very fast this year, so they consume a lot of energies. The local the authority may feel that okay, they may not meet that goal, so they cut down the slow down the industry development. And like I said, the institutional system or so I don't want to mention all of them. That's comprehensive, very quite comprehensive, and strategies like target or social, new era social modernization. So we focus on quality, not quantity. Okay, slow down the economic progress, but the quality of economy is very, very important. A green economy is very important. So they set with proposed 3 stage for green. Like 20, or that's already arrived. 2035 or 2050. That's the long-term little bit strategy. And also there's some global challenge, global approach. Like we can participate or contribute to the global environment issues, the governance. That's okay. What was? And another, one measure that's we categorize. Okay, the lot of land put in that not used for economic purpose. They called or categorized as ecological function zone. Now, that is a zoning. Zoning. So more and more land now. That's a national park or biodiversity conservation or something wrong. But anyway, there are many, many challenges because, as I already mentioned, the progress of economy is quite high. But the people also wish that we continuation of that process. But we realize that that economic progress may not bring the problem the environment. So how to bring down a little bit? Okay, the economy cannot be going down, but very serious. But okay, little bit slow down and high quality. Another issue is energy utilization. The energy because the energy in China we depend on the coal. That's maybe different with many other countries. We are the coal consumption. They take up maybe more than 60%. So that's really the issues. How to reduce down the cost of machine. That's really serious. There are many we have the problem, the challenge, as already our secretary mentioned. Also data. That data we have a national data, and it's clear. And in each county or each province we also have data, but little bit not very accurate. So it's something like we consider, okay, maybe in a city, mega city like Beijing, we can calculate how much energy consumed by the family, each family, then understand, how reduce down the family consumption of energy, how to improve efficiency of the energy, consumption. That's maybe the they are still many challenge for data, for support policy formulation. But anyway, that's also multi-sector, cooperation is another issue already mentioned, And for socio-economic transition, we realize that it's really comprehensive. Also, we understand maybe painful transformation to the green economy or to the the ecological civilization. And there are many. I think I want to save some time. They look at the drivers, or how to how to take that the drivers, how to so there are many the understanding and institutional element. So the internationally or the domestically, how we can do that. So but also including some 5-year planning, how to reform the policy state by state. Also, economy transition can be, economy can be transformed smoothly, and society can be acceptable. So that's and also improve the capacity of the societies, as well as in particular for government institutions. Still maybe lack of some capacities. And reform the government structures. So some reform are good. I already showed the good evidence. Some are still, we are trying to adapt that way. So the reform the government sectors, and the economic policy toolkits. Like payment for environment service, or how to balance, because China as well as in similar to Brazil, economic development in different regions. East Coast are very rich, but far west is poor. So it's not even. So how to balance, among the regions for development and for environment protection. But in West China, the environment is more important. So they provided the water, whatever, the energy for the east areas. So that's it's not easy, because balance among the regions, transfer the money from central government and collect the money from the east coast and transfer to the west regions. It's quite comprehensive. And as already mentioned by our sector, technology. But luckily, China technology developed very fast for the green technology, very developed, particularly for solar energy or for wind energy. That sort of technology developed quite fast. And the international cooperation, we really want to enhance international cooperation for long term. We share knowledge among the different countries, and we want to learn more from developed country, or as well as developed country, how we can make that the economy or society transform to the green or the sustainable economy, sustainable societies. And I think for a corporation, we have the opportunity to do together. And explore the inclusive, we call it inclusive, collaborative, co-benefit solution for green transition development. That's I think some like we develop kind of roadmap or the synergy effect for among the SDG goals. So that's as I already mentioned, comprehensive measures and a systematic reform. I think that's good in China, because we have the our governance, we have like party, Communist Party, they do coordination work among the different sectors, among the different agencies, different institutions. Okay, the coordination, let them talk to each other, find a way, find joint solution, joint actions. So we have some advantages. Okay. I think that's all I want to talk, because it's a really huge topic. I cannot talk within 15 minutes. I hope in the future we can share with you the very details in Brazil, in your universities. Okay, thank you very much. That's all my.
Thank you, Jinlong, for the excellent presentation. The fact that there is much to say on the topic give us other opportunities to interact, and I hope that next time it will be face-to-face, either in China or here in Brazil.
Yes.
Besides thanking you, I would like to introduce our next speaker, as we are a bit pressed. Professor Raoni Rajão is one of our greatest specialists in environmental matters. He's a professor in environmental management and social studies of science and technology in our Department of Production Engineering. He teaches in the graduate programs in production engineering, environmental analysis and modeling at UFMG. He teaches forest and nature conservation at Wageningen University and environmental policy and economics at the University of Bonn. He has collaborated with different agencies of the United Nations, the World Bank, and the German Technical Cooperation, and has advised senior officials from state and federal governments in the creation of environmental policy. His research has been featured in journals such as Global Environmental Politics, Theory, Culture and Society and Science, and Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences of the United States of America. He is an affiliated member of the Brazilian Academy of Science. Professor Rajão will discuss new agro-environmental partnerships and how China is greening its agricultural imports and what it means to Brazil. Professor Rajão, it's a pleasure to have you here with us today. And without further ado, I give you the floor.
Thank you very much, Professor Saliba. I would like to also greet our President, Sandra Almeida, Professor Liu Yangshun, Senator Katia Abreu, Ku Guilin, Secretary Marília Melo, Liu Jinlong. It's a really pleasure to be here amongst such esteemed audience and speakers. I'm going to show here some slides. I will try also to be brief. So when we talk about deforestation, it's important to recognize that the landscape of the Brazilian North has changed substantially. So this, for instance, it's a satellite image of 1985 in the state of Mato Grosso and also Rondônia and the southern part of Amazonas and Pará. And when you zoom forward and see the situation today, this is 2017. And because of those drastic transformations and their implications worldwide, we have had strong reactions, especially since the fact that since 2012, deforestation has been going up steadily with a sharp increase from 2019 onwards. And then you have different reactions from different countries and also trade partners of Brazil, especially in relation to the agricultural sector. And we'd like to start putting in contrast. On the one hand, you have, for instance, Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, who very outspokenly has criticized the issue of deforestation in Brazil and has, for instance, affirmed that France does not want to buy from Brazil anymore. Especially when it's linked to deforestation. And then on the other hand, we have a very discrete position from China, which is by far Brazil's biggest agricultural trade partner. And I would like basically to have a closer understanding, a more detailed understanding, what's the meaning of this silence. And this silence has actually happened in the meantime with a major increase in the imports of both beef and soybean from Brazil. So for instance, until recently, only about 10% of Brazil's beef was being exported to China. Now it's about almost 30%. And also the volumes have increased substantially. In the meantime, Brazil has growingly exported soybeans toward China, but it's important also to analyze that more recently, in the context of the trade war between China and the United States, most of the soy bought by China was Brazilian soy and not North American soy. And of course, this has also changed the perspective. So from given the silence from, or the apparent silence from Chinese authorities and the increased demand of Brazilian products amongst producers in Brazil, farmers in Brazil, and even government officials in Brazil, there is this perception that regardless of environmental issues, China is going to buy from Brazil no matter what. And this kinds of is encapsulated by this advertisement from General Motors, which shows a hardworking farmer that wakes up early in the morning, opened up the newspapers where there is some criticisms about the expansion of cattle ranching. And then in the end of the day, he ends with, everybody's going to complain, but they're going to complain mouthful. So they're going to complain, but they're going to buy and eat anyway. However, it's very important to understand also maybe from a cultural perspective, the meaning of silence. Because one thing is the interpretation of silence from a Western perspective that sometimes is seen as a lack of interest or inaction and sometimes even ignorance. However, from the little we know from Eastern, in this particular Chinese culture, silence or chen mo actually has a much different meaning, because it also implicates issues around self-control, wisdom, and respect. So in the sense that because someone is not complaining, is not saying, is not actually expressing themselves very strongly, doesn't mean that's not an issue, that's not something to be dealt with. And indeed, when we look at what has been happening inside China, and here I was very glad to see that some of my points have been already mentioned by both Senator Cachabreu and also Professor Liu, in terms of this transition that China is passing at the moment through the notion of ecological civilization, but also the Great Green Wall, which is the major expansion of the forest area in China from 16 to 23%, with a target to increase by more than 30% in 2050. And we are talking about a country of continental size. Also, the NDC from China, which aims to peak its greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. Also, a recent announcement to anticipate that a few years. And also, even though China is still the country with the highest greenhouse emissions in the world, and also with increasing greenhouse gas emissions, it's also the country that has invested more in green energy, in renewable energy. And when we talk about the relation between, at this first moment, Chinese companies and the issue of deforestation and green trade, it's possible to see, if you listen carefully, what they have been telling us. Large companies such as COFCO, which is also a government-owned company, one of the biggest, by the way, the biggest soy trader in the world, has, for instance, announced in 2019 during Davos, so a very esteemed and very important meeting, that he aims to scale up deforestation-free and sustainable commodity supply chains. Also, COFCO is together with other Western companies, is part of the soy of the soy moratoria. So he doesn't buy already soy grown in the Amazon from areas deforested after 2018. Also, COFCO has been very strongly getting a strong financial support from large institutions, including institutions linked to the World Bank, getting more than $3 billion in loans and long-term finance, is strongly linked with environmental targets. And also you have in 2017, and now also an improvement of those agreements, an agreement signed by the Chinese largest meat importers, so the Chinese Meat Association, and the NGO WWF on sustainable meat, which is named Sustainable Meat Declaration, which also concerned with the imports of meat linked to deforestation. However, since there hasn't been up to this point a clear message from the Chinese government, quite often farmers in Brazil and even the Brazilian government did not really listen to the messages that were coming across. But this has changed, and has changed very, very recently. Just earlier this month, on the 10th of November, during COP26, as China and the United States were actually, there were fears that the rivalry between the two countries would lead the negotiations to a standstill. In contrast to that, what we have is a very important agreement, is a very important joint declaration by the two countries, which has different points. And one of the points says very, very explicitly, I'm going to read this in full because that's particularly important, because it's basically saying that recognizing that eliminating global illegal deforestation would contribute meaningfully to the effort to reach the Paris goals. The two countries welcome the Glasgow Leaders Declaration on Forest and Land Use, which, by the way, was also signed by Brazil and established that there is going to be no deforestation of no kind, both legal and illegal, after 2030. And the two countries, the two sides intend to engage collaboratively to support of eliminating global illegal deforestation through effectively enforcing their respective laws on banning illegal imports. And banning illegal imports, that's a very strong word. And that's a very strong word come from both John Kerry on the one hand and Mr. Xie, which, by the way, I had the honor to meet during COP26 together with, as part of the delegation with Cátia Abreu and President Rodrigo Pacheco. So we have a very, very strong message coming across from the Chinese government. And it comes not as a coincidence. We have to understand as there is a specific moment that we are living at the moment, which is we have recently coming into force a due diligence legislation in France, approved also on that same day. It was ratified a due diligence legislation in the UK, also banning imports linked to illegal deforestation. There is a proposed legislation in the United States on the same topic. And we have also now on the 17th, so a week after the Chinese and the US declaration, a proposal from the United Nations, from the European Union on also banning illegal deforestation and also all types of deforestations after 2021, together with a very, very strong government mechanism with a high level of transparency. And then we have the Chinese-USA joint declaration. Also, it's very important to understand that at this moment, while there has been this huge hike in the imports from China, especially in the context of the swine flu disease that actually had to basically led to a decrease of 50% in the swine herd in China, and pigs are the main source of protein of meat in China, and because of that, we had a major increase in the price of pork meat, and also an increase in the imports from Brazilian beef as a way to replace some of that. And then we had in September a case of mad cow disease in Brazil, which was later found not to be a disease, but actually just an exceptional case of a cow that was old. And after that, since September, China has not approved a single new arrival of meat from Brazil. So basically, there is a halting from imports of beef from Brazil, which is the first message very clearly that China is not going to keep buying indefinitely. And also, as there is this decrease in demand for soy, also because there has been this major slump in the price of pork, and also we have a major drop taking place in the soy sector. So soy prices have already decreased 25% between May and November, and this is also part of the expectation that China is going to import less soy from Brazil. And as China imports less soy and less meat from Brazil, there is also a change. There is also an opportunity to be more rigorous in terms of what kind of soy, what kind of meat, and the link between soy and meat and deforestation in Brazil. Also, it's very important to read closely what the Chinese government has been saying, sometimes very discreetly. So, for instance, recently, a couple of months ago, the Chinese Ministry of Agriculture has released its projections in terms of what China intends to import of the main agricultural commodities by 2030, and it's interesting to see the strong difference, the stark contrast between what Brazil is expecting to export, and China is the main country who is growing acquisitions from Brazil, so it would be the main country to buy. So Brazil would expect to actually increase in relation to 2020 the exports of soy by 34% and the exports of corn by 33%, while China is saying that it's going to increase the soy imports in only 10%, while corn imports are going to be decreased in 70% in relation to current numbers, mostly because of domestic production. Also, we have China acting very actively in order to diversify its partnering countries, for instance, investing in soy production in China and also, for instance, in Siberia. And then the question is Brazil listening? Is Brazil listening to those messages? And it would seem no, because what we see, for instance, here is that Brazilian officials, as this report from the Financial Times, were baffled by the continuation of the ban of meat imports from Brazil, while, for instance, soy producers in Brazil, in a reaction to the EU new proposal, has basically said that Brazil is not a colony, and in a sense reinforcing the notion that the Brazilian farmers have the right to the forest, which of course is very different from the kind of world we are living right now. So as a conclusion, Brazil by far, in the same way as the ecological civilization in China, is the main beneficiary of greening its economy, of reducing deforestation in particular, because the forests are crucial to maintaining ecosystems, rainfall, pollination, and the bioeconomy. Also, it's very important to recognize that the Chinese hike in acquisitions of soy and beef from Brazil, it was something exceptional due to different reasons, the US trade wars, African swine flu, and also COVID-19. So while Brazilians, since business has been very good for Brazilian farmers in the last 2-3 years due to this additional demand, and also prices have been going up very quickly, they have actually made a lot of money during this period. They kind of expect that to be the norm, that to be the rule. However, things sometimes need to be understood in a broader context. That's why, in a conclusion, my point here is that Brazilian officials, Brazilian farmers should learn to listen to the sound of silence. Because if a country might be more discreet, might be more silent, doesn't mean it's not concerned, doesn't mean it's not acting. And if you learn to listen to those more subtle indicators, you might be able to act more appropriately, and also recognize, for instance, that China is changing due to domestic drivers, both environmental awareness including environmental awareness of consumers, and also external drivers such as environmental concern, requirements of investors, and also climate democracy. So there is a very important space for collaboration between Brazil and China in areas such as solar, wind, batteries on the one hand, on the Chinese side, and also Brazil has a huge potential to help China in its energy transition, for instance, with exports of biofuels, because Brazil is able to increase substantially its biofuel productions in a sustainable way, and it's also a means to reduce the consumption of fossil fuels. But at the same time, we have the space here to increase green trade and collaboration. It's very important to build this through the means of dialogue, through the means of mutual respect, and through the means of science, and through the means of academia. So that's why I understand that this collaboration that has been built together here between the Federal University of Minas Gerais and Renmin University of China has the potential to be the basis of this respectful relationship based on the respect of sovereignty and mutual natural interest, and also for the benefit not only of Brazil and China, but of the entire world. Thank you very much.
Professor Rajão, thank you for your excellent presentation. It's always a pleasure to listen to you. I had the opportunity of doing that yesterday and again this morning, so thank you very, very much. Professor Jinlong, how would you like to proceed? I know
yes, actually, we have the question and answer section because we are a little bit behind the schedule. Yes. Would you mind to maybe we extend 5 minutes for the discussion?
If our distinguished guests agree, then we may do so. So I see that Professor Rajão and Secretary Marília Melo are in accordance, and it's your proposal. So let's go for questions and answers.
Yes. Mariana, Yeah, I think, you have very wonderful, presentation, and I'm not sure, okay, you have the action, okay, that many people sign the, action of climate, but what sort of action they want to do? Particularly for you already mentioned, okay, land use is one of the issue, or the energy sector, or the agriculture sector. China is energy sector very, very important. We are the major, emission from the energy sectors now. What's your action, concrete action for solve the address, climate issues?
Can I?
Yes.
Thank you very much, Professor Jinlong, for the invitation and for the question as well. So in the energy sector, I think the two most important things, it's first, to diverse our energetic metrics in sustainable basis. We addressed this year in Brazil water crisis that impact our reservoirs of hydraulic energy generation. And due to this impact, the use of thermoelectrical energy was increased in Brazil. Here in Minas Gerais, for example, we are doing a lot of regulation in public policies to improve or to increase and to foment the solar energy. We are the biggest state in generation of solar energy here in Minas Gerais. So I think that we have to plan a transition for more renewable energy metrics in our countries, the first point. The second point is about transportation, that I have the opportunity to tell a little bit about this challenge, because in Brazil, in the cities, we have individual transport more strong than a collective and public transport. So it's a question, it's an issue that we have to address as well. And the cargo transportation in Brazil, it's made almost for, how can I say in English, rodoviária, for trucks. And it's important to plan alternatives like trains to do this kind of transport. This for energy. For land use, here in Minas Gerais, we are now, I just met Professor Rajão in COP26. We have go to reforest 3.6 million of hectares in our state to improve our forest here. And it's just due to a federal law that we have, the recent forest law, that bring to us the necessity to conserve the areas of permanent preservation, that's the areas along the rivers, and the reserve that every rural property has to have in Brazil. So the agenda of reforestation, of increasing the amount of forest in our country, it's very important. And for agriculture, I think that the point is technology to improve the productive without using less area and natural resources. For example, air, water as well. That's a challenge for us. We have here in our state some conflict areas due to use of water to agriculture. So I think this some points that we have to address, and this comparison could can help us to improve how to execute these actions.
Excellent.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah. Actually, Maria, we hope to have your voice, how, or suggestion or question you can deliver to us. We can work together, both university to address your research, your question or your challenges. Okay. And then the Professor Reggio, how I saw, it's difficult for me to pronounce in the Portuguese. Anyway, actually, the trade between China and Brazil, it's a agricultural and timber trade, it become the political issue now. I think, if I'm not wrong, I feel that because I actually in the recent weeks, I received a lot of information about that China and Brazil, trade on agricultural products or the timbers, a little bit political. Maybe they give very high pressure on Brazil for something you already mentioned, green products, whatever they call, and I feel that maybe Brazil is a loser in some extent in the future in the market, because maybe China like to import more products from ASEAN country, or have to import some product from United States. You may understand my point. So then Brazil are the marginalized in the China market. It's really a huge market. You cannot replace, any market cannot replace China market for meat or the agricultural products. It's something like $1 trillion. 1 trillion. It's almost like that way. 500 billion US dollar, much more than, little more than that amount. You see, it's a huge market. So it's it's really important for China and both university to research on that, the natural resource, land use, agriculture, and forestry deforestation. That's how they related. How to affect China and Brazil, the trade relationship. I think that's one of the major challenge, between two countries, particularly in the context of the climate change. Yeah. Is that true? Or that's your?
Absolutely, Professor Liu. I agree with your analysis, and I believe we have two challenges here. One is in terms of communication and even education. Because I've heard myself, even from environmental managers working in the Amazon, that when I was basically saying, look, you have to stop deforesting, and they would say, yeah, but China is going to buy anyway. And that's not true.
Yeah, that's not true.
That's not true. So it's very important to show them how the world is changing, how China is changing, how this notion of this infinite appetite is not true, of this notion that if Brazil stops exporting, the world's going to go hungry. Because I was yesterday talking to someone that works within the federal government, he was telling me that, and I was told him, and my response to him was, well, Brazil doesn't sell meat to China since September. I haven't heard anyone dying because they haven't got their beef, the Brazilian beef. And so I think that the first challenge is Brazil needs to have a more sophisticated understanding of its trade partners, including China.
That's true.
And then there is a second issue and the second challenge, which is our research shows that actually the vast majority of agricultural production in Brazil is sustainable, is deforestation free. Even in the Amazon and Cerrado, which are biomes which are high level of deforestation, about 80% of soy production is deforestation free. Also beef, at least half. And those that have problems, we have the opportunity to give them the opportunity to restore their lands, to seek environmental compliance. So it's not impossible, but action needs to take place, both in terms of education, also in terms of transparency. And then we have, for instance, in relation to that, the Selo Verde platform or green label, which is a transparency platform that has been adopted already by the state of Pará and other states to follow suit very soon, we hope. And it's a very important because it separates the good from the bad. And it allows the good producers to be compensated and to have access to markets and exclude those that are deforesting illegally. And so in this way, I think we can have an even stronger partnership with China in relation to what we have had in recent years.
It's true.
Let me, Professor Jinlong, let me finish with one question for you. Of course, taking on Professor Rajão's previous point, I think that our main objective with the creation of this research center, with this chair, is to increase mutual understanding. I think that by many actions like the event that we have here today, we'll be able to do that by in the coming years to improve China and Brazil's mutual understanding, especially by taking outstanding professors such as Professor Rajão to China, and by bringing excellent minds from China to UFMG as well. Now, one question that I have for you, Professor Jinlong, comes from our friend, Professor Lucas Lima, Professor of International Law. He asks you about China's perspective on states that are not in line with the Paris Agreement and that are not committed to its goals. Obviously, China has always been very deferential on sovereignty issues, but here it's a matter of survival. So what is the Chinese perspective on states that are not in line with the Paris Agreement in Glasgow?
I think, very honestly, as academic, I may not understand your question, but anyway, I try to, if I'm not wrong, as academic, I think China, we have a very dilemma, at this stage, very dilemma. It's hard for us to answer because we want respect. The sovereignty is a very important issue. China respect, national sovereignty. We don't want to intervene any country for domestic, affairs. Export to China for your agriculture products. It's really your country issue, Brazil issue. Okay, but Professor Saliba, you may understand that China have something like the international pressures, particularly for environment protection. Maybe we are forced a little bit, it's something rumor in China, that maybe the timber in Brazil is not legally, produced, or something like agriculture products, they maybe some misunderstand, as Professor Richard already mentioned, actually your product is sustainable produced, but there are some issue here. So that's why, Saliba, it is better in the future. We may have more academic exchange. We can produce more the document or the news, whatever, the publicize in China in Chinese, and to how I say, let's society more understand the Brazilian situations, So I think that's maybe only a way. For doing joint research and understand neutrally, but if we look at the environment, like illegal logging or whatever, sustainable agriculture production, that sort of issue, it's quite international. It's a image of international, the issues, the image of it's negative words, you see. So that's why something. That's why I think, if I'm not wrong, maybe Chinese government has a very dilemma situation. We don't want to intervene at the country's sovereignty, but that is the international pressure for our import. So I'm not sure how to solve that problem.
Well, thank you very much, and I also would like once again to thank our distinguished guests.
Yes.
Professor Raoni Rajão and Secretary Marira Melo and Liu Jinlong for your presentations. It was great listening to you. And although environmental matters are not my area, I have learned a great deal this morning. So thank you very much, and I hope that we continue this fruitful conversation in the near future.
Yes.
This event continues tomorrow. So
yes, same time.
I invite everybody to join us. I now invite Professor Liu Jinglong for the closing remarks.
Okay, thanks all the participants. It's quite late in China now. So thank all the Chinese participants as well as our Brazilian, participants. It's a very good start for this event. I hope, this cooperation we can continue and we can raise a lot of questions from the government side, from the academic side that we can do together. And I think, in the future, Sabina, I believe, our joint center can be more productive, more, more brilliant. Okay. Good night and good morning. See you tomorrow. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. Bye bye. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. See you tomorrow.